Good afternoon. Welcome to MBO's webinar for June 29th, 2017, featuring Erin Daniels. My name is Emily, and I'll be your moderator this afternoon. We currently have about 15% of our participants logged in. We're going to give everyone a few more minutes to get settled, and we'll get started at about 1:02 p.m. Good afternoon, everyone. We will go ahead and get underway. It looks like we have the majority of our participants logged in at this time. Welcome to today's webinar, Creating and Marketing Your Website as an Independent Consultant, featuring Erin Daniels of Design for People. Erin, next slide, please. My name is Emily Stringer, and I'll be moderating today's webinar. A little background on me. I've been with MBO for about 7 years, and I work here as a consultant services advisor. It's my job to respond to the requests from our independent consultants who are curious about learning more regarding MBO's service offering and finding creative new ways to run their businesses of one. This is done through consultation appointments, where we learn more about your background and needs and determine if MBO's services are the right fit for you. Next slide, please. MBO's mission statement is to make it easy for independent consultants and their clients to work together. As a high-level overview, we offer a complete, all-inclusive business operating platform for independent consultants. We take care of the administrative items that are typically outsourced to several different vendors, like incorporation, contract review, liability insurance coverage, invoicing, expense review and processing, tax withholding and payroll, and in addition to that, access to tax-efficient and portable benefits. Next slide, please. Now for a few housekeeping items on the webinar setup. First and foremost, you can see the controls listed here. Secondly, we will be emailing a slide deck and a recorded copy of the entire webinar to all registrants within the next week. Lastly, we will be taking questions throughout that will be addressed at the end of the presentation. Any questions that we do not get to will be answered via email after the presentation. Next slide, please. For those of you on social media, you can follow the presentation on Twitter using hashtag MBOWeb to submit your questions and comments at MBO Partners. Next slide. At this time, it's my pleasure to introduce you to today's guest speaker, Erin Daniels of Design for People. Erin brings 18 years of experience as a creative strategist, digital product innovator, and architect of teams that foster smart, creative thinking and create award-winning work. She founded Design for People to advocate for a people-centric approach to customer experience. Erin leads the award-winning creation and optimization of digital solutions, promotional campaigns and advertising, and content for a wide range of media and online training. Her book of business includes great brands such as Intel, Capital One, Limited Brands, and several federal government agencies. Erin, at this time, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Emily, for the kind introduction, and thanks to MBO Partners for sponsoring this webinar series. And a special thanks to all of our attendees who are carving out time this afternoon to join us. I'm Erin Daniels, founder of Design for People. We are a digital consultancy in the DC metro area focused on audience-driven branding, marketing, and strategic communications, with an emphasis on optimizing the customer experience. We use empathy and a people-centric approach with a strategic focus on expressing brand value and integrity. We service a spectrum of clients in federal, state, and city government, plus associations, nonprofits, commercial clients, and consumer brands. And like many of you joining us today, I've been an independent consultant for many years in my career before founding Design for People. Today, we're going to talk about creating and marketing your website as an independent consultant. As you'll learn in this webinar, it's not rocket science. In fact, there are many tools out there these days to make it easy to do if you want to try it yourself. Before we start, we're going to run a little poll. So Emily, I'll turn it over to you to talk about the poll.
Great, thank you, Erin. This is just going to be a very quick poll so that we can get a pulse on where our audience is in terms of branding themselves and launching a website so that we can tailor our presentation to you. So at this time, we will go ahead and get started here, and we will give everyone about 30 seconds to answer our first question. Do you have a website now? Please select one, yes, no, or I have a domain but haven't created my website yet. Give everyone about 15 more seconds. All right, and we'll call time on this subject. So 15% of our audience has a domain name but has not yet created their website. That's not a surprising statistic to me based on what we hear here at MBO Partners. And then we have 43% voting yes and 42% voting no.
Okay, great. Thank you. And thanks everyone for participating. So we have a pretty equal spread, looks like. First, we're going to learn about how to define your personal brand. Now, this is an important first step that leads to communicating your message about your business in a more effective way. Then we'll talk about creating your website, whether you should hire someone or do it yourself, and the steps you need to take to create your website. Finally, I'll give some tips about marketing your website, how to get the word out about your website and your business. So to start, your personal brand. Your mom always told you to make a good first impression. Whether it's a job interview or a blind date, you never have a second chance to make a good first impression. Your website is often the first impression people have about your business. Defining your personal brand is the first step in knowing how to communicate your business as an independent consultant. It's the first step in knowing how to make a great first impression. Now, you've probably heard the term elevator pitch. It's a quick description of your business that's no longer than 30 seconds or 1 minute. It is not a sales pitch. You might give your elevator pitch to people who aren't in a position to buy your services, but they might know someone who is. So an elevator pitch should have a hook. That's something interesting that captures their attention. It should also tell about your business. What is your service? Who is your market? It could even include your revenue model, your team, your competition, or your competitive advantage. It should show your passion. Why did you start the business? Your passion often helps make your pitch memorable. Finally, it should have a request. This will vary depending on who you're talking to. So it could be to ask for their business card, to schedule a call, to talk more about your business. It could be to refer a friend. It could be just to give them your business card or something else. It's important to understand your real challenges. What are the challenges you face positioning your business in your market? And know your differentiators. What makes you better than the competition? It's important to look at your challenges and differentiators from an objective viewpoint. Don't get personal or emotional. What is your core strength? Well, you wouldn't order sushi at Applebee's. You'd go to a sushi restaurant, and one that doesn't also serve cheeseburgers. People want to do business with experts who specialize in what they're looking for. So if you're an independent consultant, don't try and make it seem like you're a large business with tons of service offerings. As an independent consultant, you're only one person, not a large shop. Define your core strength and communicate it clearly in your website and your marketing materials. It's better to highlight a general core strength that encompasses many services than to clutter your messaging with a really long menu. Now, here's an important strategic exercise that helps build the foundation for your brand definition. This doesn't have to take a long time to do, and you don't have to share it with anyone. But it's important for you to do this for yourself because it helps form the basis for your messaging. First, define your vision. Why did you go into business? Next, define your mission. What do you create for your clients? Finally, write your key value statement. What do your clients get when they work with you? An essential key to effective messaging is to know your buyer. Put yourself into their shoes and answer these questions. Who is your buyer? What are they looking for? What do they expect? And why should they choose you? Understanding your buyer, who your buyer is, and what they want will help you develop your messaging that caters to their needs, which translates into more revenue for you. As an independent consultant, your brand essence should reflect your personality and character. It should be uniquely you. Next, we'll talk about creating your website. Should you hire someone or do it yourself? Well, if you don't have time or this technical stuff just isn't in your wheelhouse and you have a budget, you may want to hire someone to build your website. You can hire a firm or another independent consultant, or if your budget is low, you could hire a friend or family member who is an aspiring web designer and looking to build their professional portfolio. If you're technically savvy, or if you have the time or don't have the budget, it's entirely possible to build a website yourself, even if you haven't done it before. There are many tools out there these days that make it easy for non-technical people to create and market their website. The first step in creating your website is to pick a domain name. Your domain name ideally should be your business name if it's available. You can use your top keyword in your domain name to have a higher search result for that keyword. For example, johnsonaccounting.com. Don't use a domain name that is too long. Many people type it on their phone, and it's really annoying to have to type a lot. There are many domains available, like .biz, .info, .net, .co, but .com still is the industry standard, and it's unlikely you'll need to buy multiple domains. Check if the name is close to any that are trademarked, because this could help you avoid legal issues later. And finally, before you register, consider what you'll use to build your website. because many platforms include domain registration in their pricing, and that'll help save you some money. So how do you choose a hosting provider? Well, some website builders include hosting with their pricing, so it is good to decide on one before you purchase a hosting plan. But if you know you want a separate hosting plan and to install your own website platform, check with the requirements for the platform. For example, if you're installing WordPress or Drupal, they'll require a certain version of PHP and MySQL. When comparing hosting plans, look at sign-up and renewal pricing and upgrade options, and check the reliability and uptime guarantees. Do they offer 24/7 live chat or phone customer support? I mean, many times you're working on your website late at night just to, avoid the downtime during the peak time. And that's when you need that support. Do they offer regular website backups? WordPress and other tools do offer backups from within the platform. Shared hosting is less expensive and a good way to start. If you're going to take payments on your website, or your hosting plan will need to support those additional features like SSL certification, dedicated IP, and shopping cart installation. All of this, of course, comes with a higher price tag. Or if you link to PayPal or another payment provider, you might be able to get around it. Many hosting providers include email hosting for your domain, but you can also use Google email with your domain name for a low monthly fee. Web hosting is not a one-size-fits-all. Get the right plan for your needs. Now, here are some examples of website builders. There are a lot out there, and many more than can fit on this slide. It's better to go with one that is well established so your website is supported over time. Some website builders include domain registration, hosting, the website, of course, and even e-commerce in their monthly fee. Some considerations are, do you want a blog, an online store? Do you have complicated integrations with other systems? For example, does your website hook into a CRM like Salesforce to track leads? Some platforms like WordPress and Drupal have plugins to help make this integration seamless. But if you have custom fields in Salesforce, you may need to hire a programmer to help with the integration. Now, all of these programs on this slide are pretty easy to use, but I would say the ones on the left are easier. WordPress, can become more complicated, and Drupal is a little bit more complicated. Your website needs to be mobile friendly in order to show up higher in search results. In 2015, Google changed its algorithm to rank mobile-friendly sites higher than non-mobile friendly sites. Many website builder platforms offer responsive templates, so choose those responsive templates. The key to a great website is great content. Your message should be clear. Do you remember the key value statements from your personal brand definition? Use them here. Or massage the language so they're delightful to read. What services do you offer? Who is your typical client? Show your buyer that you know what you're talking about. If possible, give examples of your work and tell the results of your work for your clients. A blog is a great way to keep content fresh on your website. Videos are also great if it makes sense for your business. Videos rank very highly in search results. So what content should you have? Well, for one, an introduction. This introduction should clearly state the value proposition. You should have your services, and these are your core strengths. Again, not a long menu. You should tell about yourself, have a bio, and be professional and friendly. Because you're an independent consultant, people need to know about you. Write a comprehensive bio and include your highlights and awards. Your previous experience at other companies helps. Buyers want to know that you know what you're doing and that you've done it before. Get a professional headshot or ask a friend who is good with cameras to take your photo. That personal touch really helps. Work samples or testimonials, whichever is appropriate for your line of business. Be sure to include an easy way for people to contact you. This could be a web form or an email address. It could be your phone number, but if you're unsure about posting your phone number on the website, you can get a Google Voice number that will basically transfer those calls to you, so you don't have to expose your personal phone number. And also include links to your social media pages. And if you have a blog, be sure to include it here. If you have any press or external articles about your business, include links to those articles. And I highly recommend including an email newsletter sign up too. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. You can use the Keyword Planner tool to find popular keywords. This is Google's Keyword Planner tool. You can do this and get suggestions without setting a budget and launching a campaign. It's a handy tool. So you use your popular keywords in your content. You place them high at the top of your page in page titles and headers, since that's what is ranked higher in search engines. You can use this tool to create Google AdWords or search engine marketing campaign and tailor it to your specific keywords and locations. Being an independent consultant, marketing dollars are typically tight, so be sure to wait to do a paid campaign until after your website is launched and rock solid. Get insights from Google Analytics. Google Analytics is a must-have tool to track traffic and how your users interact with your website. It shows new and repeat users, where they're located, and what pages they're visiting. It tells you how many users are viewing your website and whether they're viewing it on their desktop computer, tablet, or smartphone. It's a robust tool that gives you insights on how people are using your website. And best of all, it's free. Next, we'll talk about marketing your website. In order for your website to be crawlable by the search engine spiders, you should submit your website after you launch it. It's very easy to do. You just type in your domain, prove you're not a robot, and click submit. With Bing, you'll have to sign up for a webmaster account first, but it's free. Referrals can come from friends and family, so create Facebook and LinkedIn pages for your business. You know your audience. What social media platforms do you think they use? Create a YouTube or Vimeo channel if it makes sense for your business. Instagram and Pinterest are really great if you use photography in your business. Just remember that if you create a social media page, you'll need to post often. I recommend once a week or so for Facebook or LinkedIn, 1 to 3 times a day for Twitter, once a month or 2 for YouTube or Vimeo. So if you don't have time to maintain many social media channels, think carefully about which channels make the most sense for your business. And use Hootsuite or some other social media management software to schedule and distribute your posts. And if you have a budget for ads, you can post ads through Facebook or other social media platforms. And write articles on LinkedIn to help get more exposure for your business. And be sure to be active in responding to comments to posts on social media. Create a monthly or quarterly newsletter for your clients, your business contacts, family, and friends. I personally love MailChimp, but there are several out there like Constant Contact. Newsletters should tell highlights of recent projects or blog posts and reflect the look and feel of your website. Be sure to include a link to your website. Just know that legally, you'll need to have a physical mailing address on your newsletters. So if you work from home, you might consider getting an office mailing address at a co-working space or a P.O. box if you don't want to show your home address on all your newsletters. Creating and marketing your website is not difficult. Even if you haven't done anything like it before, there are so many tools these days that make it easy to remember to have fun. Thank you so much for your time today, and many thanks to Emily and MBO for hosting this webinar. And thanks again to all the attendees who are joining us on this beautiful afternoon. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Erin, thank you so much for joining us and giving such a wonderful and informative presentation. We really appreciate you taking the time to dive into the subject, which is a subject that so many consultants are afraid to tackle on their own. So what we'll do from here, we want to learn a little bit more about our audience and who would like more information from us and who would like more information from Erin. So first and foremost, this is our first webinar ever that we've opened up to our active MBO associates. So whoever you folks are, we would like you to go ahead and identify yourself in this first poll. We'll give you about 30 seconds to chime in here, so if you could answer, that would be fantastic. And then we will move on to our next questions. We're at 50%. 75%. We'll give you a few more seconds here. All right, thank you. It looks like we're about half and half here. So for our next question, we'll go ahead and get that up. Would you like more information about MBO partners? This is for our non-MBO associates who are with us on the web today. We'll give you about 15 more seconds here. All right, and we can close that one out. And lastly, would you like more information about Erin Daniels and what she can offer your company? About 15 more seconds here. We're at 70%. All right, and we can close this one out as well. Great. Thank you for participating in our final polls. What we will do from here is dive into the questions that we've received from our audience and see what we can do from here to help you folks out. Please keep in mind that once we have wrapped up this presentation, if we do not get to your question, we will address those via email and we will be in touch with you as quickly as possible regarding those. And in addition to that, we will be mailing out a copy of this webinar within the next week, so hang in there and we will get you a slide deck. So Erin, from here, the first question that we'd like to address is, can you explain what SEO is and how it relates to marketing my business?
Sure. SEO is search engine optimization. And it's more related to being found, having your website being found. Search engine marketing is more on along the lines of marketing. And the difference is, with search engine optimization, we do use things like the Google Keyword Planner tool to find popular keywords. Once we identify what keywords are going to work really well for us, we try to use them in the content copy, so all the pages on your site, and it's best to use them in page titles. So that's basically the link to your page is in the actual page title and a title tag. And also in headers, so in your your headlines, and any text that's very close to the top, those will rank higher for search engine optimization. And so that's really important if you want to rank higher in Google, for those specific terms. Now, search engine marketing is a little bit different, where you're actually putting money, towards those keywords and posting them in ads in Google search that are related to those particular keywords, and you can also identify certain locations, geographic locations where you want to focus it. If you are an independent consultant that really has a local client base, you'd want to bring your local geography down, like close to where you are, and that'll help reduce pricing and reduce the competition within keywords within that particular geography.
Great, thank you, Erin. We have a number of questions regarding SEO rolling in, so I'm going to stick with that subject for a few minutes here and move on to another SEO question. So what are your thoughts on getting link backs from other sites to help drive SEO and improve algorithms?
I think it's always helpful to get link backs. I personally don't rely too heavily on them, but it is always helpful. So I would say if you do have good link backs, I think it would be important to really focus on the credibility of where those link backs are coming from, and focus on your, what is this saying about your brand for your business, and be sure that that is, doing really well. So basically keeping up with your brand is going to be really important.
Great, that's excellent advice there. Now one from someone who blogs. Will I reduce my website's SEO visibility or be penalized if I post my blogs to my LinkedIn profile and on my company's website? What would be the impact of that?
I think that your blog is very helpful. I think it should boost your search results. It should boost your exposure across the web. And I think it is helpful to boost it on LinkedIn as well. So I would just check with LinkedIn to see if they have any sort of certain terms and conditions. But the thought is, it's great that you're writing a blog, and that is a good thing, and that helps get the word out. So I would say, that's really important to help get that word out and keep your content fresh on your website.
Great, that's excellent advice. Lastly, regarding SEO, and then we'll move on to another topic, do you have any tips that you can share regarding ranking high on Google?
Yes, I did cover a few, but I'll go into some other tips. The few are the original ones, the page titles, that's important, your header tags, body text. You can add some into the meta description. That gets kind of technical. However, that's not as prominent these days. We're sort of steering a little bit, past that to content. One trick that we've used in the past is, and judge whether this makes sense for your business, but a lot of search queries are in the form of a question. How do I learn more about financial planning? Or, where do I find a good accountant? Think about how a human, like a normal person, would ask a question that's related to your business, and write an article or a page with that question. Use that as a page title. And in your CMS, whatever platform you're using, if it's WordPress, it will give you a field that says where you type in what that page title is. And so that long page title will really help.
Great, that's excellent advice, Erin. One other thing here that came in, what metrics do you think are the most important to measure in terms of analytics?
Well, new users is a good metric, I would say. Another metric is to see how deep are people going into your website. Are they just looking at the first page and then leaving? Well, granted, some websites are just one page. So if you have a one-page website, disregard that comment. But if you have, a deep website that has multiple pages and people are only visiting the first page, try and consider what can you do to get people to dig a little bit deeper and get more information. Also, see how much time people are spending on the site. If they're just in there for 10 seconds and they're out, try to get that engagement up, having rich content. That's going to be really, really important. And make sure your contact page or form, whether it's on the bottom of every page, make sure that that's really prominent.
Great, that's excellent advice, and I agree with you that finding measures to look at your customer engagement is very, very important. So onward to our next topic, we have lots of blog-related questions, so we'll move in that direction next. The first question I have here is, should website content be written in first person? Why or why not?
Well, that's a really good question. If you are an independent consultant, I think you have the ability to do that. Because you're not saying you're a team of people per se. I think that's fine. There may be other viewpoints out there. For me, I think it's fine, depending on what you're talking about. If it makes sense to write it in first person, that gives it a little more of a personal touch. If it's something that you don't want to have that sort of personal touch, then perhaps, you might consider an alternative, way of writing it.
I think that's excellent advice there. Next, we have a question from a user saying, I have a blog on my site. How can I drive more visitors and convert them to qualified leads?
Well, those are two different goals, and they lead into one another, which is good. So having more views is one thing, but having views that are from qualified leads, now that takes a very strategic approach. That means you need to focus on where your buyers are. What do they do? What are their habits online? And go where they go. For example, if it's like you're in a coaching business or something, and a lot of this is sort of live presentations and such, do videos. Talk about your business in a video. If they are, on Instagram a lot, then go there. LinkedIn, go there and publish articles. So I would say that's the best way. Promote your blog posts on those platforms, and that'll help bring it in. And really, really focus on your messaging so that it's written in such a way that really captures your buyer's attention. What is it that they want? And how are you going to give it to them? That's going to be really important to capture their attention, get them interested, click that link, and get to your blog post. And then on your blog post, have a really specific call to action. Call now to learn more, or email me and let's get started. Something like that. Make sure to have that on every post that you have. And that way, that'll help drive leads, a little bit more aggressively, but, in a good, a good way.
Great advice there. Now, for this next question, you just did a wonderful job answering the first piece here regarding what a consultant should write about within their blog. The second piece of this question, though, is something important. the mention is regarding Hootsuite, which is a software platform that you had mentioned previously in the presentation. Can you talk a little bit about how that works to schedule, post, and distribute your content?
Sure. And I will address the first one too, what to write about in your blog. Well, you're an expert in your field. You want to show that you are an expert in your field. And so what you do is you write about topics that people are interested in your field, topics that people who want to buy from you are interested in, and write about how you solve those issues, or you know, your viewpoint as an expert. Now, Hootsuite is a really good tool that allows you to schedule your posts at certain times. It allows you to hook into all of your social media channels that you have, and basically it'll post these for you, you know, when you set it up. And that way, you're posting at the optimum time, like say 9 o'clock in the morning or 10 o'clock in the morning, and you have meetings. Well, you know, it's really hard to be sitting there tweeting at 9 or 10 in the morning when you have meetings, you know, and you're trying to just get some info out there. So Hootsuite can really help with that. And it helps you with your planning. Maybe, you know, in your workflow, maybe you have, you know, 15, 20 minutes at the end of the day, and you want to populate your Hootsuite, you know, with the post that you want to show the following day. It'll allow you to do that sort of at a more convenient sort of workflow pattern for yourself.
Great. Thank you for a little clarification there, as that could certainly be a very helpful tool for consultants who are busy and on the go, who don't always have time to manage that on the spot. So the next subject that I'm seeing a lot of come in is regarding lead management. So first and foremost, can you talk a little bit about some of the best ways to collect lead information?
Well, Salesforce is a great way to collect lead information. It is a little bit pricey, but it certainly helps. And you can have your contact form be created so that it directly integrates with Salesforce, and that will help tremendously. There may be other platforms out there that offer some CRM capabilities. Just would need to, you know, do some searches and see what else is out there. But I do know that Salesforce works very well. It only gets complicated if you have custom fields, like if you're using more than your typical, you know, fields like name, phone number, address, and such in your Salesforce. To populate those custom fields, you might need to hire a developer to create a custom field on your contact form on your website that will go into your Salesforce. But if you don't use those, there are plugins. I know in WordPress and Drupal. There might be on some of the other platforms, but it's definitely worth checking. And it is really helpful because any way you can organize your leads, it just is a tremendous help.
Great. Beyond that, can you speak a bit to the amount of contact opportunities that should be included in a website? Would you limit that just to a contact us page, or would you have other form fills that could be an opportunity for individuals who are perusing the website to get in touch?
You know, this is a personal question that you should answer, like, for yourself. Think about, how do you want to handle, you know, calls or emails that come in. Keep in mind, when you have an email form, it tends to be a little bit more secure because you can route that to like an email address that has, you know, spam protection. You could put a robot, you know, check mark, you know, check that you're not a robot, and that will help a lot reduce the you know, robot spam that comes through. An email address, just beware that if you have an email address on your website, just be ready to get a bunch of spam. So I would typically use like an info or a hello at your domain name, and just keep it, simple like that. If you are not worried about the spam and you're okay, your email program has a good spam, resources, then, you could put your email address, you could put your phone number if you have a business phone number, that's good. If you want to use a Google Voice number, that helps relay the phone calls to your phone. If you want to have an address, like if you do have an office address, that's helpful if you feel like, people come and visit you at your office. If you're a home-based company, then, I understand that that's pretty, something you may not want to show on your website is your home address, just because the website is available to anyone and everyone, and you might just want to be a little careful about your home address. So I would say it really, really depends. It depends on how you want people to contact you, how much contact you need. If you have a short sales cycle, you'll probably want to keep a lot of options open because you need to get a lot of sales that come in more frequently. And so that's really important.
Great. I think that's excellent advice, and that is something that consultants do need to tailor to themselves depending on the type of business model that they are running. We have a couple of more questions here that we'll take before we get things wrapped up, and we will end promptly, probably at about 1:55, so we will start ramping down here. If you have not yet submitted your question, please do so at this time so that we can make attempts to address anything that has not yet been addressed. So Erin, for our next topic, single screens, what are your feelings on a single screen website so that visitors are not scrolling endlessly in order to get to meaningful content?
I'm happy with single screens. I think that it's good to have a simple website. If your content lends itself well to a single screen, then I would say go for it if that's what you want to do. They're very trendy these days. They can show very nicely. I would just, say if you have a blog, perhaps you have links to your blog posts as sort of highlights, and then the blogs themselves will go on separate pages. Things like that, you may end up having a few extra pages besides just a single page. Depending on the needs. And if you offer, pretty long case studies, you may want to have that sort of in a clickable format, whether they click to a PDF or to another web page, either way. But yeah, I would say they look great. They are trendy. If your content isn't, too lengthy, you can definitely go for it. I mean, they look really slick.
Okay, great. Yeah, I am in agreement with that 100%. Next, what about paying independent marketers to bring traffic to your website? The pay would be based on results only, clicks, submissions, etc. And there's a question mark after that in the next comment field. Can you speak a little bit to independent marketers and your thoughts on that, and if you have any that you would recommend?
I have not worked with independent marketers before, so I may not be the best, person to answer this. I would just, maybe, say in terms of the traffic that they're bringing, whether they're qualified leads or potential leads or just any random person coming, just be sure, of what you're paying for, that you're getting some solid leads that will turn into business. Because traffic is one thing, but if it's not the traffic that, is actually going to subscribe to your services, that kind of traffic may not be necessarily worth paying for that kind of traffic. But the ones that are good, yeah. So unfortunately, I cannot answer too much. I haven't used one before. So I don't have any recommendations.
Okay, That certainly makes sense, and we certainly understand that. Do you know anything about the payment options, if it's pay per click, pay per lead? Can you speak at all to that?
For the marketing consultants?
Yeah, for the majority of these marketing consultants.
I would suggest more of a click per lead because that's showing real money. You know, just a click is a click. And because you want something out of it, you know, you want to have a potential client out of it. A click for lead would be a higher value and more productive for your business. So I think it's really important for independent consultants to understand that, you know, a lot of traffic doesn't necessarily mean a lot of business if they're not, you know, subscribing to your business or calling for more info and that sort of thing. So a lead is more valuable, I would say.
Perfect. So our last question here, do you have any ideas or tips for people starting out that don't have much experience to highlight? More specifically, how do you craft your website to sell yourself without having any expense or any experience, awards, or accolades to highlight?
Well, there are a lot of very easy tools to use to create a website if you're not, you know, technically savvy. And if you don't have awards yet, you know, eventually you'll need to, or it's helpful, you know, if you go and try and win some awards. But, you know, everybody starts off somewhere where they don't have awards and then later they win awards. And the other part of that is you have to submit your work in order to win awards. So there is a lot of effort that goes into winning awards. It's submitting, then actually winning. You need to get your client's permission to submit, you know, for awards and such. I would just focus on your highlights. You focus on your experience. What are those differentiators, you know, that you learned, you know, during your personal brand exercise? What makes you better than the competition? You know, describe about yourself. And eventually you'll get there. I mean, this is a journey. Being an independent consultant is a journey. So you start somewhere, you build, and then you add your awards later when you start winning them.
Great advice, Erin. And to your point that you had mentioned earlier, part of being an independent contractor or independent consultant is selling yourself. So that certainly would ring true here. If you don't have the experience or the accolades, sell yourself, sell your difference. So that is it that I have regarding questions. So at this time, we'll go ahead and get things ramped down. Erin, thank you so much for an informative session. We very much appreciate you joining us this afternoon. To our audience, thank you for joining us also. It was a pleasure being on the line with you and seeing you all online to help provide you with some tips and tricks regarding how to market your business with an online presence. So we will go ahead and end our broadcast, and for those who have requested more information, we will get that out to you as quickly as possible, along with the slide deck within the next 7 days. Thank you very much.